But here we go, design, culture, and you, perfect together. My daughter was born with a 14 mm cleft lip and palate. It's a bit of a hot start, right? But everybody, stick with me on this one. This type of a cleft has a technical term attached to it. It's called a doozy. And no, that's not a technical term, but it was, in fact, a doozy. My daughter had 2 operations, almost 600 stitches, and 23 months of various types of therapy before the age of 2. My husband and I lost sleep. We lost our sanity. We lost our footing several times over those 23 months. But there was one thing that was there to help us. One thing that was pretty unexpected. In a situation that beguiled us and left us with more questions than could easily be answered, there was something, and it was curiosity. And to be honest, I felt a little uncomfortable with that at the time, and I feel a little weird standing on the stage saying that right now. But when you're told that your daughter, your first baby, the greatest love that you've ever known, is in danger, you feel a lot of things. And for me, one of the main ones was this sort of ravenous curiosity, a relentless desire to understand, appreciate, and conquer what beset my unborn child. Every cell in my body, it felt like it just turned inward and focused. I would do anything I could within and potentially outside of my power to help her. And my daughter Juniper happened to be well-placed for us to embark on this journey. The hospital we were aligned to had the preeminent cleft department in the country, and at that time I would even say the world. And as much as we were curious to understand what was going on, they were mutually curious to ever improve their results. And they had a framework for this, and they sat us down, and what they said was, 33% of success here lies squarely on the shoulders of the surgeon. And we were like, great, because we're not surgeons. And then they said, 33% of success here lies squarely on the shoulders of the prosthodontist. And we were like, all right, got you. And we Googled prosthodontist. And then they said, 33% of success here lies squarely on the shoulders of the parents. What? These two, right? Now, I am a relentlessly curious person, but even I thought this was sort of squarely outside my realm of expertise. And this is important. There's something that you do sometimes. If you happen to be feeling safe, or if you're feeling ooh, I'm on the wrong slide. The last one was brave. This one is safe. If you happen to be feeling safe, or if you feel like you have no other choice. If you're given an opportunity to do something completely different than anything you've ever done before, you say to whoever offers you, you say, lay it on me. Whatever I have to do, I'm going to do. Let me be a part of this team. Let me shoulder this load. And when it's your daughter's happiness and well-being in life on the line, you take that load on, whatever it happens to be. And so the hospital presented us with an opportunity. Of course, it wasn't one that I was ever going to be able to walk away from, but it was also an environment where I could be who I was. I could bring questions. I could just come to them and talk to them when I needed to. What it was essentially was spontaneous teaming with very high stakes expectations. And as a team, we were all in it together. They pulled their weight, and what they did was they taught us to pull ours. What ensued was 77 initial days of what's called craniofacial manipulation, which is also something that you can Google. And it's essentially us moving the bones in Juniper's face together to remove the 14 mm gap in her upper jaw. In these 77 days, we went from a 14 mm cleft to a 0 mm cleft. How did we do this? Rubber bands. Crafting, essentially. And for somebody who doesn't craft, this was a thing. As you saw in the previous photo, we did it by manipulating a plastic orthodontic piece that was sat inside of Juniper's mouth and protruded out. And we crafted hundreds of these insane little harnesses to keep the darn thing in place and also to create the right pressure that would bring the bones together. We worked with the hospital as this tight-knit team to understand what was successful, what could be tweaked, what wasn't working at all, and what made us drink full bottles of wine at night. By the end, we helped move that 14 millimeter cleft, which is in fact a doozy, to looking like this. So, I get a little every time. Juniper has a vision. But the real thing here is that incredible things can happen when you build an environment that supports curiosity. Because in cultivating curiosity, you build a space for safety, for exploration, and for vulnerability. And this is fertile ground for creativity. Curiosity is really the takeaway here today. It is the acorn at the middle of all design culture. It's what's going to push your products forward meaningfully. And who am I? The rubber band crafting, wine drinking maniac who became a cleft expert. Well, I am a mom. Mostly, I'm just a curious kid at heart. And I'm also a design director at the nexus of machine and human interactions. I work at CapitalOne with their future-facing machines team working on the strategy, and I manage a team of amazing, curious, creative, provocative designers. And I've used many of the elements that we had with our medical team at NYU with my creative team. So let's start talking about what some of those are. What were the ingredients that created this special sauce for curiosity? Well, there was trust and respect. We believed in each other. We relied on each other. There was candor, open and honest talk at all hours. There was critique, honest, contextualized conversations about where we were succeeding and, frankly, where we weren't. And there was a vision, a North Star, a mutually understood, if aspirational feeling, end goal. And there were norms, schedules and metrics reliable and expected, as well as expectations that all of our outcomes were intrinsically tied to. And there was mutual support, a true belief and understanding that we were all in this together, and we were all truing back to the same understood vision. Having all these ingredients fostered this wealth of curiosity, this deep desire to understand the specifics of an uncomfortable and engulfing unknown. So when I was considering how to talk about creative culture and cultivate it at scale, I kept going back to this experience with NYU, and I realized that I've used these ingredients in various amounts ever since to help foster my teams to grow their culture and then to actually push it past the edges of the design org. But here's my caveat. You need to right-size creative culture to your particular org. You can't start at 11. You have to start in a way that fits, a way that's going to encourage and grow the culture in ways that will help designers flourish without completely upsetting organizational apple carts in the process. And with that, the first ingredient is trust. Creating an environment based on trust and respect is a job that literally never ends because fears will intermittently surface and then resurface. Trust and respect have to win out over fear. Fear of looking stupid, fear of feeling intimidated, fear of offending people. Now, when speaking with the preeminent cleft team in the country, you would assume that they were trustworthy, but there's more to it than that. How did they actually show themselves to be? And in developing trust and respect, they illustrated key dynamics, like consistent communication style. They were consistent with us in their interactions, always giving us time to process, respond, and think things through. They were a judgment-free zone. When things didn't go as planned, like when we walked in with Juniper and her cleft hadn't closed as hoped, they didn't judge us. What they did is they sat down with us and we figured out what we could change in the process to ensure better results the following week. And there was shared purpose. They framed everything as a group absolute team effort. No party was lesser than the other. There was no us versus them. It was a 33-33-33 split. All of us working together to succeed. So what can you do now with your teams? Encourage transparency and simplicity in communication. Keep the lines of communication open. Be open and accepting to different points of view because those are the things that are going to get you to really compelling places. Bring the team together around a shared purpose and goals to illuminate how working together creates the outcomes and outputs that everyone desires. And now ingredient number 2, conversation. Apparently, I really wanted animals in this deck. I recall finding myself surprised at the frank and honest conversations that we would have with the surgical team. And they were marked by shared language. What we learned was that complex medical situations are actually really complex. And they can be hard for a novice individual to understand the nuance. So our surgical team had this real knack for breaking things down smaller and smaller into bits that we could finally grok. There were room for questions. Each step of the process was explained and we were allowed to respond, query, and ask questions. They answered each one of them thoughtfully and purposefully to make sure that we understood and all moved forward together. There was time prioritization. Notoriously, the medical industry can feel a little like you walk in one door and you're being pushed out the other. But somehow, they managed to get around that. And they also gave us several alternate avenues to keep in touch in case something came up, in case we had a question to ask. And they were compassionate to our situation. So what can we do with our teams now? Make sure that you're speaking to people in a way that they can understand. And if they have questions or need further definition, find ways to give it to them. Gain clarity. Let people think. This is really important. Let them come back to you with questions. Be flexible about it. Create air for people to process at their own rate and feel safe reaching back out if they want to bring something up with you. And always do your damnedest to make room for your team. Sometimes work is like super easy, and then sometimes work is like not that easy at all. And then sometimes absolutely nothing moves forward if you don't have 3 hours and a whiteboard. All I can say is find the 3 hours and find the whiteboard. Ingredient number 3, critique. Quote, critique is intended to help teams strengthen their designs, products, and services, rather than be used to assert authority, push agendas under the guise of feedback, unquote. We use critique to improve communication and collaboration across our teams. The first part of it is candor, welcoming everyone to the discussion and continually encouraging trust between all the participants that are in the room. If you work on how you approach your conversations, you start to set that foundation of what candor can become. As a group, the more we talk to each other and share work, the more our language starts to mean the same thing. We choose the same words and create a streamlined mode of communication. So what you say, I truly understand. And this fosters more candor in communication. Part 2 is a belief in the iterative spirit. If we believe design is iterative, and we do, then critique is your engine for this. Critique is the designer's moment to just take a step back. Of course, we need to test with users. We need to get stakeholder buy-in. We need to do so many other things. But critique is going to allow you to put your work in front of your peers and have their expertise help you push it forward. With candor and iteration, we can create ever-improving products. The next part is like a bonus point level that I try to force on all my teams everywhere. By regularly critiquing your design work, your mac and cheese recipe, your exercise regime, whatever it is, you keep using muscles that help you tackle problems. And by discussing your work in public, in a public forum, you help hone skills that you can use in any situation where you have to talk in front of large groups. Being able to speak critically and eloquently in any venue will do nothing but serve you. It's part critical thinking, it's part public speaking, and it's entirely a superpower. So what you can do now is remember your purpose. Critique is always about understanding and improvement. It's never about judgment. Listen and think before responding. Do you understand what the critics are saying and why? If you don't feel like you do, just keep asking clarifying questions until you all move together. You all move forward together. And return to the foundation. Use agreed upon objectives as a tool to keep the feedback focused on these objectives, and don't let it digress into some philosophical conversation about how maybe we don't like the green type on this slide. And participate. Critique the work alongside everyone else. Get involved. Ingredient number 4 is something to navigate by. In order to create a safe environment where creativity and design can flourish, you need a North Star to navigate against. You may go 1,000 different places via uncounted routes, but if you can still keep looking up and find the same guiding star, you'll know that you're going in the right direction. So my particular team has a mandate to evolve the experience of human and machine interactions against several near and longer-term timeframes. There's a combination of business as usual and innovative design. So we start with a foundation stone of vision, which is a mission statement. In our case, it enables confident self-service banking in person nationwide. Note, we're a machine team, but our vision statement just shoots right past the machines and starts to talk about the in-person and self-service experience. This inherently pushes the understanding of what we do to all of our work. We have to think about the individuals that actually come and touch the machines and not just the machines themselves. And that brings us to the next part. Articulated understanding of a customer base, which we particularly defined through archetypes. Going deep and interviewing across a broad spectrum of customers helped us define the key levers that affect our users. What makes a person prefer an in-person interaction over a digital one? What pain points define how customers interact with our machines? What might be the accelerants or detractors in a customer coming to our machine or our physical locations? After defining our archetypes, we can bring this body of work forward to every project that we touch. And now that we know our mission, and we have tools to help us understand our customers, we bolster our culture and how we design with defined team and experience principles, which is like a hot word at CapitalOne. I'm looking at you, Daniel. For our body of work, we built a stacking set of principles that all rely on each other. We really needed to encourage our teams to think past just what they were delivering in the next 3 months. So we developed the principles to be understood in a particular way. Flawless foundations are non-negotiable and are literally at the center of everything, so you will not forget it. And secondarily, a future focus needs to always be in the periphery of your mind because it's actually where we're heading, and manufacturing hardware is hard. For whatever your body of work might be, think through how you should look at your work. Is it incremental? Is it always addressing the same principles? Will the principles provide enough wayfinding for someone to feel grounded when they have to make a decision about the work that they're doing? And what can you do now? Well, every army needs a banner. Create that banner for them to march under. It will be your mission. And every army needs to know who they're fighting for. So define your customer and help your team understand the people that they're building products for. And give your team something to reflect on as they approach their problems. Give them boundaries to push against. As our work should always be iterative, do not think of your mission or your principles as static. Half the reason we create these artifacts is so that we can contextualize what we do, and if we should adjust them. Frameworks are powerful. They help you evolve your work. Ingredient number 5 is understandable norms. How do you balance such a broad body of work? Create flexible norms that help us stay on track while balancing work and team needs. My team works in 2-week sprints defined by stories and velocity. There are tactical aspects that lead to this. It involves things like stand-ups, sprint planning, product meetings, and design demos. On top of that, we've defined creative and critique meetings to come together to share work, to give feedback, to get feedback, and to share skills with each other. And then on top of that, we have a level of one-on-ones and retros to keep up with all the members on the team. Meeting one-on-one helps create room for deep dives on various topics. While your sprint retros with your whole team, they allow us to identify what worked and what didn't work in the last sprint so we can iterate and improve things as we move forward. Our JIRA stories, they allow the team to know what they are responsible for. This allows them to manage their time however they want against achieving those goals. Control your environment so expectations don't wander or constantly get amended. If expectations keep changing, it's hard for teams to get things done or feel successful when they actually manage to get things done. And if you can't rely on each other and you can't rely on your norms, then you can't cultivate the next and last ingredient, which is mutual support. Because we work hard to speak the same language through things like critique. We define our bodies of work and we sort of ladder under them through our North Star. and we meet regularly to understand what we are all at and through our norms, our team can be there for each other. And all of this together creates a playground for curiosity. Curiosity is something that begins to flourish when you mix and match all of the above elements. Hallmarks of curiosity are easy to spot. They involve going beyond the ask, looking at problems from new directions, finding joy even when dealing with a hard problem because you know you're going to learn something new, you're going to discover something you didn't know before. Questioning what must be and what we know to be true today in order to find all the strange gray area in the middle, which is where the interesting stuff lies. Because as it turns out, this thinking in non-binary ways will get us to the future, and the future has no singular path. So encourage that sort of wander. Curiosity is also marked by a willingness to embrace unknowns, knowing that even if you don't have the answer right now, you're going to be able to get it because you have the tools and you're going to be able to find a signal out in the noise. And if we want design to thrive, if we want design to scale, we have to allow our designers to not answer the questions sometimes, because in wandering away, they can actually find another way around. This shows up in what I call whimsy, and it's just sort of implying that the correct path is not always the most obvious one. For curiosity to thrive and for designers to do their design thing, feed their curiosity. Here's a member of my team at a glass blowing activity and another one of us at an interactive light exhibit. Does blowing and manipulating glass have literally anything to do with what we do in our day-to-day? No. Does going to a VR game experience? Well, maybe. But it does keep us thinking outside of what our day-to-day looks like. And that influences us when we actually get back into the office. My team works in both the physical and the digital world, so we seek ways to be curious about digital technology and also how we might interact with the tactile world that's all around us. This lets us wander. Think about innovation for a moment. Innovation lies at the intersection of multiple things coming together in unique or unexpected ways. If you only look at what's in front of you, you're going to miss the unique views, the weird angles, the idiosyncratic, oddball details that'll get you to something really new. Going to the VR experience and having the crap scared out of me when I walked out on an imaginary plank over an imaginary cityscape changed my understanding of the physical versus the digital, because in that moment, the physical became the digital, or the digital became the physical, and that was terrifying. It made me more sensitive to the nuance of people coming to our machines and physical experiences when they haven't done it before. That too can be terrifying. Look at your work and your team members. Identify things that you can encourage in your team so that you can build fun around it. And then get out there, roll around in that whimsy, and keep your perspectives fresh. There's really so much more to talk about, but if you walk out of here with anything, remember, curiosity is the acorn that can actually grow into an oak. Find ways to cultivate it in your organization. Big ways, small ways. Develop and grow trust, candor, critique, norms, and mutual support. Strong design team culture creates strong product design, and both we and all of our customers deserve that. Thank you.
And we have a question.
One question. Okay.
What techniques do you use when communicating with teams that work remotely?
We use a lot of mural. We have rules around, one of our norms is everyone must always be on video, always. Seeing people's faces we find is really, really important and allows us to know who's thinking what. And we really leverage mural like you wouldn't believe. It allows everybody to get their thoughts up there. It allows you to synthesize in real time. It allows you to break things down, create roadmaps, to-dos, all of those kinds of things. And I think in our organization, it's probably the tool of choice for that right now. Sweet. That was easy.